I apologize.
It's okay. This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD Vashawn Quinones, who is the son, and he is a film critic. He is the son of Shabba Doo, and is also a film critic. And we also have with us Mark Armstrong, the founder of Chicago Urban Fine Arts Commonwealth NFP. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, and thank you for being able to remember all that. This is a mouthful that is trying to say Chicago Urban Fine Arts Commonwealth NFP. And for those who don't know, who's wondering what the heck of NFP is, in Illinois, a not-for-profit corporation has that behind it, and it's the equivalent for nonprofit of incorporated or company or LTD.
Yes.
So it literally means not-for-profit.
Right.
Okay.
Designating that we're a not-for-profit corporation of Illinois.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Vashawn,
Yes.
okay, let's start with you.
Okay.
My condolences that about the death of the recent passing of your father, Shabba Doo. Would you like to talk a little bit about your father's work and what he meant to you?
Well, my father's work, where do I begin? Well, he was very passionate about dance. He was very passionate about helping young people. Like I said before, growing up with him, he everything was about dance. Everything was about art. He was a big fan of musicals. He loved, people, groups like, Nicholas Brothers. He was a big fan of, Fred Astaire. But, he just dedicated 40, and maybe my math might be a little bit off, maybe 40 plus years of his life, to the art of dance. He always made sure that he always wanted to help young people be the best in dance as well. But for me, Dad, a lot of people don't know, was that he was really big on storytelling. As a point in his life during the 90s where he kind of wanted to pursue other things, roles weren't coming in, and his body was getting old. And he's like, hey, Vashawn, I want to explore a different avenue and expression in art. So one day his lady at the time had suggested that he attend AFI, which is American Film Institute. So he put together a sizzle reel, and they liked it, and he received a letter saying that, hey, enjoy your summer, because as of September, you're a member of American Film Institute. He took a directing program.
What a sizzle reel is, because I don't think everybody's familiar with that terminology.
Well, I mean, it's just a real collection of your work he put together throughout the course of his life, right? Kind of give you an idea of who he is and his background. So he put together this reel that I believe he put together himself. And submitted it in.
So basically his application reel, you would say.
Well, you call it demo reel, sizzle reel, application, whatever, but they wanted to see his work. So he put together this video of himself, and he was accepted. Now, at the time, I don't know if AFI policy had changed, but they were only accepting like maybe 25 applicants in the directing department. I could be wrong. It wasn't a lot. And the fact that he got in, he was very excited. And I just remember the first day, class was from 9 a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. And he was exhausted. And it was Monday through Thursday, these classes were. And so I think from
so would you say he was from a handful of Black and Latino, or or how did that work out back then?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Oh, I was saying, so back then, would you say he was among a micro handful of Black and Latino
Where at AFI?
that was accepted to the program?
I just remember it was only a handful of Black people there.
Okay.
Yeah, it was probably at best maybe 3 in the department that I can remember. My dad, another gentleman who I don't know if he was in the directing program or producing program. I think his name was like Tyrone, and then there was a sister in there who is, I think, either the screenwriting or directing program. I couldn't necessarily make sure. I don't know for sure, but it wasn't a lot. So it was very noticeable.
So how early did you say he got interested in filmmaking versus dancing per se, or at least the production part of filmmaking versus
Well,
yeah.
like I stated before, early in my life, as far as I can remember, he's always been fascinated with cinema and choreography and dance and everything. And I remember just him watching a lot of MGM musicals, watching a lot of, films from the 40s, whether it's Stormy Weather, whether it was, I can't think of the film where, was it, whose man's name? Was Gene Kelly? He was dressed up like the sailor. Can't think of the name off.
Oh, the one with
Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
Anyway, Vashawn,
yeah.
So let's clarify. So when every year they accept 25 new honorees into the American Film Institute, AFI. Is that?
Well, he was saying back then. He was saying back then, director program, Trudy.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
It wasn't. It really wasn't a lot. It wasn't like something like USC or UCLA, where if you had the grades and the money, you can get in. It was like it was a small number. And a lot of people at the time, you got cut if you didn't make it. You get that slip. Yeah. Huh?
So how long would you say was a probation period before they cut you?
I'm sorry. What did you say, Drew? Sorry, I'm sorry. What did you say?
I was saying how long was the probation period before they cut you? Because you're saying they cut you.
I have no idea. I just remember that a lot of people weren't making it.
So he was in classes from 9 in the morning to 10 at night, 10 in the morning to 10 at night?
It was around 9 a.m. to about 10 that evening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long was the program? Like for how many years, or was it for 1 year?
Woo! It was, I would say that probably a year. That's a guess. Because it was like he graduated sometime like May, possibly June the following year. I think he graduated like around, I want to say around 96.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember what was his first project when he graduated, or did he have a project while he was in class?
Well, he had 3 projects that he had to work on. I guess they had these cycles. Your first film. In fact, I worked on his first short film. I even had a little part in it. His first short.
How old would you have been then, Vashawn?
In my teens. I don't remember. It could have been 17, 18. I don't know. But I just remember the first short film that he did was with Timok of The Last Dragon. And didn't really turn out too well. Some things happened. And, he got his first taste in what goes wrong on a set. And, being a director. And so, basically, he went before this teachers and everything. And they're like, look, things are going to happen on set. We're not going to be here to be a safety net. And, you know, basically you're on your own. You're going to have to figure it out. That's just life. Things are going to happen. So he's like, I can't complain. And again, I didn't work on his second short. I worked on his third short, which was an adaptation of a Miguel Pinheiro play, excuse me, which was called The Sun Rises for the Cool, something like that. And he graduated, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. And he was asked to do a second term at the school, and he was like, no, I'm going to pass on that. But yeah.
But he did eventually get to graduate. Is that correct?
Okay, I got two questions going on.
Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
After he graduated, what was his first project?
Funny enough, he got back into dance. Also, too, at the time when he was at AFI, he did he worked on a Michael Jackson video. Now, I don't know if it was Ghosts exactly, but it was one of them. It was like, I think it was one of Michael Jackson's albums during that mid-90s point. I think it was Blood on the Dance Floor, something like that. But I remember Papa Taco, rest in peace, Bruno, you know, came to him and said, hey, listen, you know, Shab, you know, there's this video that, you know, Michael's working on, you know, we want you to be a part of it. And Dad at the time was like, look, I don't know if my body can take it. So, but nice pay. He went on and did it. And, you know, that's all I remember. It wasn't very long. He was on the set. But I do remember that he worked on that video, one of those videos. I don't know if it's Ghost exactly, but yeah, it was a Michael Jackson video.
Did you get a chance to?
No, I did not. I wish I did. Funny, I've always had this strange or close relation to Michael, even though I've never met him. You know, my dad has worked with him, and I'll leave it at this. I had two cousins who were Michael Jackson's bodyguards for many years. So I've always like, oh, what? You worked for Michael Jackson too? I couldn't believe it, but never got the chance to meet. Never got the chance.
Do you recall how much control, creative control Michael Jackson had over his music videos? Was he sort of like a shadow director, or did he pretty much be on the, let's say, the choreography or what have you, leave it up to the director?
That I do not know. All I know is that certain, you know, dancers would go do his videos. There was some type of some type of agreement, something that they had to sign, some type of waiver where, you know, they weren't allowed to talk about it. That's all I know. That's what it was told to me. That's the only thing I can speak.
So truly, Jessica, because we've talked a lot, but we haven't talked about our relationship with Vashawn's family, Vashawn and his family, and how I became fascinated, or how we became fascinated with Shabba Doo beyond the dance part, because everybody, you know, focused on the dance part, but they didn't really focus on the, shall we say, creative control and labor part. As you know, that we're a not-for-profit civic engagement, civic action, and civic organizing not-for-profit corporation of Illinois. And one of our, of course, economic development is one of our main things, because our feeling is that you can party and BS all the time, but there comes a time when you have to also be able to party in progress. So one of our big things has been economic development in what we call the urban fine arts constituencies, which include but are not limited to hip hop and reggae and all that. In fact, I just finished doing a resolution for Ashraf Selassie, the much missed musician who performed on 2 Grammy-winning Marley records for Ziggy Marley. and who also was a longtime owner of Wild Hair, the reggae club that started in Wrigleyville and is now still operating in Lincoln Park. And so I kind of hooked up with them through a guy named Clash Titan. He's I don't know how to describe Titan. He's I'll just call him a Renaissance man. He does everything. And my understanding is that Vashawn's family and Shabba Doo and all of them sort of grew up like family. So they're pretty much extended family for them. And after there was a resolution or a proclamation by the Chicago City Council in connection with a street naming honorary street naming for Shabba Doo in front of one of his old elementary schools, I had asked Titan, I said, well, because I kind of hung back because I didn't want to have a competition going on as far as who gets there first, is the most, is the bestest, as far as honorary anything. So after that all subsided, I asked Titan, I said, well, would you all like to have a resolution or a proclamation on the county side? He was like, yeah, sure. So we put that in motion with Dennis Deere, who is pretty much Commissioner Dennis Deere, who represents a lot of Chicago's West Side. And that kind of turned into a whole bunch of other things. But basically that was our way of getting a high profile resolution for Shabba Doo. It was also a way of memorializing him on a very high way because I don't know, I can't speak for the city of Chicago, but on the county side, proclamations or memorializations of people like that go into the county archives. And the secretary to the board, who sort of acts like a clerk, because the city clerk doesn't sit there and take notes or what have you, minutes or what have you. It's the secretary to the board. She is also the county historian. So she has all that stuff archived, sort of like a museum for Shabba Doo.
When you mentioned that Shabba Doo did a lot to help the youth. So how did that work with economic development, and how did Shabba Doo decide that he wanted to give back to the youth?
I'm trying to answer that as best way I can because you got me with the economic development there. He just always liked working with young people. You know, it was one point growing up where he was kind of off the straight and narrow path himself as a young man. So, you know, had he stayed in Chicago, he always told me that, you know, he could have been in Cook County too at one point. So, you know, dance pretty much saved his life, and Soul Train pretty much did too. So if he always had the opportunity to talk to young people, to steer them on the right path, he would, whatever little knowledge that he had, you know. But, you know, through dance, that's the only way he really connect. That's what young people seem to, if they seen breaking or seeing, you know, whatever films or television shows that he was on, that always seems to be the driving motivation to always want to connect with them. And, you know, so that's
how old would you say he was when he began dancing, or when he exhibited an interest in dancing like that?
I don't know exactly, but I'm gonna have to say, since he was, you know, born in '55, so I would really have to say throughout the '60s as a young kid, young teenager. You know, listeners to James Brown. I remember he talked about Mother Popcorn. You remember, you know that song, right? You know, doing all these dances and stuff like that. But he's always had a passion for dance, even as a kid. When he got to his teenage years, when he got wild, yeah, he really went full throttle with it, you know.
Did he ever tell you how he developed his moves? What drove him to make his own moves, and when did he break out and everybody recognized that those moves are very unique?
Well, as far as locking is concerned, you know, that the credit goes to Don Camelot, who is the creator of locking. now, so that would be the beginning. But he had like his little signature moves, Now I don't know exactly where he got them from, but each member of the Lockers had their own distinctive or individual move to distinguish each member. Whether it's my uncle Fluky Luke, he jumped in the air and had the splits. Some would jump, leap over each other. You had this one man, rest in peace, Mr. Penguin, known as Rerun. He had the butt trick. So they all had their distinctive moves.
Well, I've got a little for you guys that Vashawn may or may not know. We discovered everybody thinks that Soul Train was his first appearance on any screen, but it turns out that Shabba Doo's first television appearance was with the Lockers, which were then called the Campbell Lockers, if I'm correct, on the Carol Burnett show.
Yes, that is true. He was on the Carol Burnett show.
Yep.
He did a lot of television at that time.
The big thing. The other thing that a lot of people may or may not know is a lot of the what I call the funky dancers, or the people that did the popping and locking, came out of Cabrini-Green, his housing project. I don't have enough fingers or toes to count the number of times people said, Chicagoans especially, say that when they really got into the culture, it was through somebody from the Cabrini-Green area. And I've been told that Shabba Doo spent a lot of his formative years before his family moved to Los Angeles, Southern California rather, in the part of Cabrini-Green that's known as the Tower, that's known as the International Tower. And if you see the opening credits for Good Times, that building is particularly shown, and it was called the International Tower because it wasn't just Black people there or what have you. It was like Black, Latino, Asian, First Nations, you name it. As my mother used to say, you name it, I claim it. Claim it.
Did your father ever tell you how the kids came together to dance in Cabrini-Green?
No, he did not.
Mm.
I'm sorry, I know.
That's okay. And
Right.
and where does his stage name Shabba Doo come from?
Woo, that one, I've heard the story, but don't really know. I can't just go off the door with it. He's told me, but I pretty much forgot it. I know. I'm sorry about that. I should have wrote that one down.
Get a hold of Tony Baso because they had a long.
Well, no, because all I know was that his original name was Sir Lancelot. That was his original name. But as far as Shabba Doo, I know he's told me this and I've heard the story, but bottom line, I probably wasn't really paying attention to it. But yeah, let me get back to you on that one. When I find out again, I'll ping you and then let you know.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Sir Lancelot, how did he get that name?
I think that name was given to him, if I'm not mistaken.
By
yeah.
Do you know by whom?
That I don't know. I think he may have called himself that. He may have given that name, but I think it may have been granted to him as well. It's one of the two. Either he named himself that or it was granted. So, yeah.
Sir Lancelot actually is like the most active of the characters.
No, actually, it was Sir Lancelot.
Oh.
LLC.
Oh,
Sir Lancelot.
I get it.
Yeah. Sorry, me, y'all.
Oh, no problem. So I'm curious as to what his what's the word I'm looking for? Artistic or professional relationship was with Tony Baso, who was a member of the Camel Lockers, but who also went on to kind of do her own thing. Because I sort of detect a slight generation gap there. He was what I would call a mid-level boomer, and she was an early boomer because he was born in '55 and she was born in the late '40s, I believe.
Well, I don't know when she was born, but I just do know that, um, Dad and Tony for a while were real tight. I think they even worked on a couple music videos. I know Mickey in particular. There was two versions of Mickey, I believe.
Oh
My
wow.
dad worked on one version of that, which you can find on YouTube, and I think there's another version. No. Then there's some off Broadway stuff that they did at the time. She was dating a gentleman by the name of Spasmatic, and he's real heavy into punk rock, and Dad kind of got into that for a minute. If you look at a lot of the spikes and you look at stuff he was wearing on his wrists, it was very influenced by punk outfits at the time. He kind of got dibbled and dabbled in and out of that world. But yeah, so that was that. I mean, the relationship, the work professional relationship was kind of, I always hear her name, but they would not talk for a while, then somehow she would resurface. So it was kind of like that.
She dates back. She's old enough to have performed on the original dance type programs, akin to American Bandstand, like Shindig and Hullabaloo, and I forgot all the names of the other ones. But you can actually see, I guess that would have been videotape as opposed to kinescope. But she actually appears on tape, nonetheless, dancing and with the bouffant hairdo and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, she's pushing 80 right now, isn't she?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Was Tony and Shabba Doo involved in helping youth?
Excuse me?
Yeah, when your dad tried to help youth and help the youth and get them interested in dancing and contribute, give back. Was Tony also working with Shabba Doo in that?
What she's asking is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I understood her. Well, he used to have a dance studio out in Van Nuys. And there would be a lot of, I wouldn't say just young people, but there'd be people there. But yes, there would also be young 20-year-old students would be in his class, but I've never seen Tony there. Now, she could not to say that she was never there. Just a couple times that I've been there, I've never seen it. So,
would you say that I'm talking about Shabba Doo now, that he worked with youth on, let's say, the Soul Train set, maybe show them some new moves or what have you?
No. No.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah, once he was on Soldier, and that was it. That was it. There was no going back.
Well, in the name of shameless promotion, I can tell you, Trudy, that after 7 years of existence, CUFAC is finally going to celebrate Cook County Urban Fine Arts Month, which is 4 years old, and was established by Dennis Deere through a resolution, and we have never celebrated it. And so we're going to celebrate it actually with a party for the first time at Sept Lounge on this coming Tuesday, actually, day after Labor Day. And it's going to be I would call it a party of Thanksgiving for everything that we've accomplished in our 7 years of existence, and that the urban fine arts community has accomplished in its 7 years of existence, from a power politics kind of thing, from getting city council or working with city council and the Cook County Board of Commissioners on rolling back amusement taxes, to sinking that awful flavored beverage tax that you and the head of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce were a part of. Because had that stuff stayed and not changed, a lot of artists, including dancers and MCs and DJs and musicians, other musicians, as well as the nightlife business staff that supported them, like the security and the bartenders and maybe the food service staff, would have had less money to take home off the door and off the bar at the end of the night to pay some bills with. And we're calling it a Cook County Urban Fine Arts Takeover because we're pretty much 606 Chicago Hip Hop, which is the credited as the world's longest operating hip hop open mic, is going to sort of hand their program over, if you will, or their production over, so that we can do this. And a lot of the people that we're going to celebrate during this whole event on Tuesday evening will be the dancers. We're going to honor Shabba Doo as well as Cab Calloway, who, unknowns to people, was the original battle dancers. So Sam Greenlee told me years ago that when he was a student at Crane Technical College on the West Side, about the 1920s, that Cab Calloway was a member of a Lindy hopping gang. And what they would do, and they would call them gangs, they didn't call them crews back then, and they would literally go around to the clubs, around the clubs in Bronzeville on the south side, black part of the clubs, because they couldn't get into the white clubs. And they would literally try to kick the bejesus out of each other in competition. So they were real battle dancers. And they would try to do bodily harm to each other while dancing.
Do you know if Shabba Doo did any of that kind of dancing too, at least maybe in film or in you know, just as part of his repertoire, Vashawn?
You just to clarify, so you're asking, did he do any battle dancing that would try to cause bodily harm, as opposed to maybe
not bodily
morale harm?
Yeah, not bodily.
Okay.
I don't think he would do that. But did he ever portray that in his art?
Are you saying that? Are you asking me that? Did he ever compete or battle against somebody?
Yes, but I don't think that he would be, you know, wanting to do bodily harm. But he, the creative soul that he was, he might have done that on film or as part of his dancing. Do you know if he was involved in any of that?
I'm trying to answer this the best way I can because I'm don't quite understand what you're asking, but
I think she's asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trudy, but you're asking if he ever tried to portray the aggressiveness that hinged on being very physical or suggested that he could do bodily harm. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. He was very competitive now, and sometimes, you know, a little hot-headed. So, absolutely, and he was a big fan of Cab Calloway. You know, it was one point where Dad even wore zoot suits in the 70s or late part, early 80s. You know, so yeah, he's very influenced by Cab Calloway and kind of that Roseland jazz, you know, era, you know, 1940s wear, because he was wearing that stuff too. A lot of, you know, khaki World War II outfits, the small rim glasses, and the, you know, kind of the paper army hat. So he had, you know, he was wearing a lot of that back then. But it was interesting. He did now I think it was on the Big Show. There was maybe a segment, or, you know, called a skit or whatever, where it was a big, you know, production, and it was set, I would say 40s. They had World War II outfits, the old sailor outfits. He did that. Funny enough, that whole routine was then used again in Janet Jackson's video. Was it Anything or If? I can't think I remember. It was run at Rhythm Nation era.
Is that you talking about the one where they had Cab Calloway in the
Correct.
video or something? Okay.
Yeah, so they had just something very similar. And it's funny enough, even in that video, they had some locking in there too. So
yeah, I remember that being very aggressive because I was trying to think of aggressive dance numbers that not Fred Astaire, that Gene Kelly did. And the only one I can think of is when he did that recreation of Murder on 10th Street.
Okay.
Which was like which according to what I read and heard was the very first, that came from, not Anything Goes. I can't think of the name of the musical now, but it was like the first, it was by Balanchine. It was choreographed by Balanchine. And it was like the first musical dance sequence in a musical.
Okay.
And it's pretty aggressive because it's a story of a man and a woman who love each other, and they're sort of on the rough side of the tracks.
Right.
And there's a triangle involved where there's a boyfriend, and to make the long story short, everybody gets killed.
Oh wow! Man, Mark,
In
you're
the
very
end.
Know a lot, family.
Well, I like to watch film and keep. My father, I'm a son of a history teacher, so I keep up with that kind of stuff. But as I remember the storyline of the choreography, the jealous boyfriend of the burlesque dancer kills her, and then the new guy that loves her kills him, and then he dies of suicide afterward. All involving gunplay.
No. Well, Vashawn, you are a film critic too, and how did your dad influence you in that work, or did you was it on your own?
Let me be honest. I'm not a real film critic. I just play one on a podcast. No, but no. Well, no. As a kid, I've always been into cinema. Dating back to, I would have to say, probably, I remember the year 1983. My mother and father had divorced, and what happened was, kind of this family that became kind of like our second grandparents. This new technology called a VCR popped up. So he would have all these movies and everything, and he just, man, go in the den and go watch wherever you want. So that led to me, just going through his video cassettes, seeing what I could find. So whatever movie that was popular at the time during the 80s, and he had a VCR, and at the time, if you wanted the newest movie, you could either wait to purchase it, or you took 2 VCRs and dubbed. So so he had a nice little collection. But just then, always having a genuine love for cinema, it didn't occur to me that it's an art form until later in my life, around the 90s. Of course, people like Spike Lee comes around, the Hughes brothers, the whole black cinema movement during the 90s. You begin to see, like, okay, well, how do they do that? You start to ask that question. What is the director's job? What is the screenwriter's job? What is the cinematographer's job? So what happens is, if you're fond of one particular artist and you like he or she's work, you go back and go to the video store and try to rent anything that they made. So at times, Spike was making quite a lot of work, and I was just drawn to it. I'm like, wow, what is this thing called filmmaking? And so 1995 rolls around, while I'm already doing my own exploring and gathering knowledge about what filmmaking is. Here's Dad comes in and says, hey, I just enrolled in film school. So whatever little knowledge that I can give you here from school, I'm going to pass to you. And I used to go to some classes with him at AFI. I was like, hey, I'm going to go to school. He's like, no, just roll me to my class today. So, I got to see you know, a lot of the filmmakers that were there that would give Q&A, well, question and answer for those who don't know, you know, after their film will be screened, you know, they talked about it, the process, you know, what was it like, you know, having to go through pre-production, post-production, and all this stuff. So I was getting a firsthand knowledge or you know, schooling, being at AFI and talking to my father.
What was your most memorable memory of the film?
At that time?
Yes, of that time.
Well, to be to be perfectly honest, it was probably the first time that Dad and I really had connected, because up until then, you know, he was constantly touring, he had, you know, television, and, you know, rarely did I get to see him. So when he, you know, was in film school, you know, he was home. So that was our bond. Dance was never our bond. I didn't want to be a dancer. He asked me, I was like, no, I don't want to dance. So, but he was like, look, you know, I see you watching all these movies all the time and all that. So what I'm going to do is, you know, I'm going to talk to you like a filmmaker. I'm going to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to you like a fan or someone who just sits in a room and watches a movie all day. You know, you're going to help me put together a shot list. I'm help me put the screenplay together. You know, it got to the point where we would watch stuff. I'm like, look, I can't take it today. You know, you rewind, stop it. This scene here, that's a close up. You know, it's like, woo. If you can do this 10 hours or 12 hours a day, I can't handle, you know, with an hour, 2, 3 hours, because it was like, you know, you got to know, you know, you got to know these things, you know, because it's language. You know, a director has to know how to communicate to his or her crew. So, and you have to communicate to an audience visually.
That musical I was thinking about, by the way, you guys, was adapted from a Rodgers and stage version of Rodgers and Hart musical called On Your Toes, which is 1936. The first time it was done on film was with Valentin's then wife, Vera Zorina, who was a Norwegian dancer, and she played against Eddie Albert. And yes, we're talking about Eddie Albert from Green Acres, so I'm really dating myself. And then Vera Ellen and Gene Kelly actually created that particular storyline in the 50s, and I can't remember which movie that was in, but I tended to like the 1950s version better than the 1939 version on film that was adapted from the 1936 version. So it was Slaughter on 10th Avenue from On Your Toes. Just throwing it out there to be correct and up to date.
Vashawn, what is your work in film?
No, my work in film is just talking about it. I'm just a regular 9-to-5er. Yeah, I'm a regular working stiff, you know. But with my dad's passing, a lot of people don't know, was that he was working on a podcast himself. And well, a couple of things have happened. He had a curriculum set up in Memphis, which is shout out to Liddell Beeman and everybody over in Memphis at Heal the Hood Foundation. He had a curriculum set up at this school over in Memphis, and everything was ready to go, and then COVID hit. COVID hit. And so while everyone was on lockdown, he was going to set up a podcast. He had turned this area within the home that he was living in into a studio. So when we, you know, were allowed to interact with one another again and take the masks off and all that, he was going to have guests come to his studio, which was Shabba Doo studio. And one of the people that he was going to have was his good friend, Michael Jai White. And he passed away.
Wow.
So he never got it off the ground. And so a lot of people, I went in, of course, after dealing with my dad's passing, kind of went in a depressive state because I've never had to deal with death like this before. So people that care about me and who I consider family were like, hey man, you need to put all your energy in doing something, either writing or maybe do a podcast. So I like to extend a lot of love to a young lady by the name of Natasha, my co-host Fully Love, who are constantly in my ear about putting together a podcast to like let all my creative juices out of it, whatever you want to call it. So I started a podcast back in November of 2021 and been doing it a little over a year now. And I call the show, my podcast, which you can find on Spotify, I call it Fear of a Black Film Critic. And the reason why I call it that is I'm combining both cinema and hip hop. One of my favorite groups of all times is Public Enemy. And they had an album called Fear of a Black Planet in 1990. So I got the blessing, my good buddy C-Doc, who works for Public Enemy, finally enough. He's like, go ahead, man, run with the name, do it, just don't use the logo. So everything you find. So to wrap it up, so that's what I do as a fun thing is talk about cinema and, kind of get my creative energy going, if you will.
From a labor standpoint, Vashawn, would you say that you're getting to the point or you have an opportunity to be like a part of, let's say, some kind of film critics organization or what have you, or you tell us?
I would like to get into that, to be perfectly honest. And I've spoke with people that are, in the business, and I have, in-depth conversations about cinema. And I'm like, damn, man, you ain't in film school for yourself. What are you doing? You're working a dead-end job. What are you doing, Sean? So, so I'm always, people have, I don't know where I'm going with this. Sorry. It's late, y'all. So, but.
You and Shabba Doo would probably be glad to know that part of honoring him is on Tuesday at Sept Lounge for Cook County Urban Fine Arts Takeover of 606 Chicago hip hop is going to include bringing out a lot of what I call Prairie Wood or Chicago's film industry.
Uh-huh.
In fact, there's a young lady named Caprice Williams with a film company called Rouse Productions, because she does a lot of urban trauma and recovery film. She's going to be premiering her trailer for her upcoming project. I think she's almost done with the final cut of it. There's also a brother named Kevin Epperson, and he's the wife of one of our big educators on our scene. I'm expecting her to bring him out. There's yet another one, a guy named Tommy Sigmund. I forgot Tommy's hip hop name, but in any case, he's a prolific filmmaker. He especially likes to do horror films. He's going to be out there. So, so when we honor him on the dance part, we're also going to be honoring him on the film part. And your uncle actually is going to be there as well. I don't know if your uncle is involved in film or dance, but your uncle Eric, because we were hoping to have Vashawn out for this event on Tuesday, but stuff happened, and we understand it wasn't his fault. So we just substituted Eric Von Smith, that's his uncle, for that, which kind of works out anyway, because one of the people we're going to honor from a distance will be Jean Beleniuk. I hope I'm pronouncing his name. Beleniuk. Anyway, he's the lone black member of the Ukrainian parliament, and he's also an Olympic Greco-Roman style champion. And
Okay.
he's one of the few. His father was Rwandan, and his mother is white Ukrainian. And as a member of the, and he's had a lot of overtures or opportunities to go elsewhere, but he's one of the few Black Ukrainians, at least, who have stayed behind to defend his homeland. And he also MCs on the side. So we're showing solidarity with him around the same time that we're getting up the resolution. We're showing solidarity in many ways, including with a resolution, at the same time that we're giving it up for Shabba Doo. In fact, Shabba Doo's resolution is planned for later this month during the Cook County consent calendar, which occurs during their monthly regular meeting. So the consent calendar is when they read all the resolutions and everything, and it's going to be a whole ton of them because so many people, unfortunately, that meant a lot to us have died. But we took the initiative to make sure that they were memorialized and not forgotten.
How can our listeners find out when that meeting takes place? And do you know if that meeting is virtual so that?
It actually live streams now. It's come a Cook County Board of Commissioners has come a long way, so they actually live stream. And I believe, if memory serves me right, that their consent calendar meeting, as well as their regular board meeting, which it's a part of, is going to be on September 21st. So I think, is that a Wednesday or Thursday? I can't remember. Hold on, I have to look at my calendar here. Make sure, just give me a split second. Let's see, calendar.
Yeah, Friday. Really? Is it?
No, it's a Thursday. It is a Thursday. It's September the 21st, Thursday, at the county boardroom.
Okay.
And it live streams, so anyone can see it.
And our listeners could access the link for the live stream on the Cook County Board website.
Yeah, I can actually send you after we finish this up. I can actually send you. Well, actually, let me see if I can find it now. In either case, I can get you everybody a link to it so they can watch it live or record it.
Right.
And Dennis Deere would be sponsoring. Again, Dennis Deere represents a large chunk of the west side and the near west suburbs. And he's sort of our go-to person for hip hop and everything else, urban fine arts. Because I tried originally to get John Daly, who is Richard Daly's youngest son, to do it, but they were kind of wary about doing it because Dennis Deere had been the go-to person for all the urban fine arts and hip hop stuff, and so he came just in time because as you know. He had some kind of surgery. He was the first one to have this surgery for a respiratory issue, he and some other woman. And so he's been making a rapid recovery from that. And he recovered just in time to be able to come back to the office and assume his duties that he had to put off to the side to get this surgery or what have you.
Yes, our best wishes to him for recovery. Yes. Okay, Mark, what about for Chicago Urban Fine Arts Commonwealth, CUFAC? What else are you doing? And is there anything that our listeners could contact you with? Are you doing anything for?
We're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Besides this thing on Tuesday, we're going to be, our biggest event is going to be Greater Chicagoland's first professionally juried hip hop sporting event, which is the Cook County Hip Hop Olympics, which is October 21st. And we're going to have competitions in all five, for the first time that I know of, in all five hip hop elements. So we have a competition in emceeing, competition in DJing, and these are not battles. These are individual competitions, by the way, or competition by individual. We've got one for visual art that's not limited to graffiti art. We've got one for dance that's not limited to popping, locking, and breaking. In fact, I'm looking forward to I'm hoping we can get some people for that event, that competition, who do that Brazilian footwork. I think it's called Passarinho or something like that I really like. And then we've got one for knowledge, which is basically either a 3 to 5 minute poem or oration on 50 years of hip hop. That's the subject we're picking, so it's kind of limited down. And then we also have a quinthalon, where if you're bad enough, you can do all 5 hip hop elements and see who gets the highest composite cumulative score. And the ones who get the highest composite cumulative score in all 5 competitions will receive the Peely Fresh Medal. It's a silver struck medal with a picture of one of the founding fathers of Chicago hip hop as we know it now. His real name was Parker Lee. He died of COVID as well. I want to say either a year before or around the same time as Shabba Doo. And his mother, Flora Copper, is considered the Chicago hip hop matriarch. And she's going to actually be handing out some awards that we call the Tyehimba Jess Medal on Tuesday, as well as the medals for the Olympics, Hip Hop Olympics. And she's going to be one of the judges for the Hip Hop Olympics as well. And Peely was also probably better known to most people as Parker Lee, as the longtime music supervisor for the Oprah Winfrey Show, as well as Harper Productions. Also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
How could our listeners find out more about this competition so that they could register to compete?
We have actually Cook County, I think I sent it to you. Cook County has it on their website. We've been posting about it on Facebook. We also have sort of a trailer or commercial about it where they can find out about it. But probably it's the best thing because we were trying to do it through make people aware of it through Eventbrite, but we're having some glitches that Eventbrite's AI can't seem to figure out, and that we can't help them figure out because of their technical glitches. But anyway, they might want to try. I'm going to give them a telephone number, 773-366-0444. And again, that's 773-366-0444. Or they can email Citizen King, King, 773 @yahoo.com. So it's Citizen, CITIZEN, King, KING, 773 @yahoo.com. And there's also 2 more events I'd like to share with you guys. We're going to also be doing we got the green light. We're going to be organizing a panel discussion at University of Illinois at Chicago called Politics and Hip Hop. And this isn't a nebulous discussion of hip hop and politics because we were kind of turned off by the Juneteenth discussion at DeSaba Black History Museum and Education Center when we asked the panel that included Scoop Jackson, the McFarland guy at the Chicago State University, and George Daniels and Kool Moe Dee, where we asked them for their reflections about the growth of power politics in hip hop, and we gave them clear examples like Andre Vasquez here on the Chicago City Council, and Maxwell Frost from Florida, who's reputedly working on getting subsidies for struggling hip hop artists as well. And Scoop Jackson said, well, it'll never happen. And I'm like, but brother, it's already happening. I just gave you some examples. He said, oh, it'll never happen because it's life. I'm like, so you don't think that politics is life? So I got together with, we got together with David Stovall, PhD, who is one of the Black Studies professors at UIC, and who also heads up our organization's education, political education and research unit, and got this thing together because we wanted to understand that indeed indeed it is happening. It's been happening for a while in Newark, New Jersey, for example, with Ross Baraka, who's Amiri Baraka's son, who was first a council member of their municipal legislative body and who's now mayor. So there is indeed a lot of politics that's been going on for a while involving hip hop and the urban fine arts. In fact, I'll let you all in on something. Jamal Bowman, who you see all over the place from the New York delegation, along with Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, got the Universal Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx $5 million. That's huge. And we've been telling the Cook County Board of Commissioners and City Council and the Illinois Congressional Delegation, as well as our representatives in the Illinois General Assembly, that we want the same deal for the pretty much brand new Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Museum. You know, if it's good enough for New York, it's good enough for us to get those kind of goodies.
Yes,
Also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hip Hop Heritage Museum, that one really it's so beautiful. We've been there, and the banister, the railing for the outside staircase definitely needs replacing. One of many things.
Yeah, the the guy who was the main driver for that, he had some property, late 19th century property that he inherited in Bronzeville, and this has been a long time dream of his. So he pretty much took this property that he inherited from his family and turned it into this museum. I haven't been there yet, but I've heard about it. And Parker's mother, Pee-wee's mother, actually has been there. And I wish he had taken one of the souvenir copies of his resolution there, but you know, stuff happens. So I think
you can still do that. It's not too late.
Yeah, and one of our main projects that we're pushing for in the name of economic development is we're trying to get the nightlife community organized so they can tell Brandon Johnson what they're looking for as far as furthering their purposes. Because that transition report that you may or may not have heard about, as far as initiatives that he wants to pursue that are still unfunded at this point. In fact, most of his appointments are not fulfilled at this time. So one of the positions he's looking at appointing is a deputy mayor of nightlife business as part of his arts initiative. So I've been telling people like Jory Norman and Simeon Northley, that they need to get together, and I can help them do that. I don't want to be in charge of it. I just want to be the if you will, the power behind the scenes of them getting together some kind of caucus or some kind of group that would put together a agenda that they would want Brandon Johnson and his proposed deputy mayor of nightlife business to pursue, because no one would know better than someone in the nightlife business, whether they be promoters or club owners or artists or what have you.
And how could members of our listening community contact you if they want to be involved in helping push forward their position of deputy mayor of nightlife?
You can contact me, because what I want to do is pass this information along, and then since 606 Hip Hop is pretty much our workshop, the same way that Breadbasket was Dr. King's workshop, we want to have like a summit or some kind of convention or what have you, where all these representatives of nightlife business come up with an agenda and then insist on a hearing before the appropriate committee. And off the top of my head, I can't figure out which Chicago City Council committee that would fall under, but just have a hearing to inform these people, this is what we're looking for, this is what we want, this is what will help us further our purposes and our gains as nightlife businesses. And especially this is very important considering that the Democratic National Convention is next year in Chicago, spread out between two venues, United Center, the stadium, the sports stadium, concert venue, as well as McCormick Place. And the city is going to be very involved because they have to have a host. You have to have a host, what's called a host committee, by Federal Election Commission law, which would act as a sort of conduit for tourism. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for Chicago's nightlife business and other business that would involve hip hop and the other urban fine arts.
Okay, Mark, could you give us again your contact information for our listeners to contact you if they want to become involved in forwarding this position nightlife?
Sure, well, that information I gave you before, the 773-366-0444, or the Citizen King 773 at yahoo.com. Again, that's CITIZEN, King, KING 773 at yahoo.com. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, I mentioned alluded to our Tyehimba Jess Awards on Tuesday. And our inaugural class for those awards are Scylla or EC, the MC, iconic MC who is now an author. He just published a book about maturing in hip hop. Queen Zenobia, or Zenobia Spencer, who's a very hard, ardent, and sometimes undersung worker on the urban fine arts scene. I mean, that girl's all over everywhere, doing it for people, doing it for the scene, and not just for herself. And then 606 Chicago itself, we're awarding, not to pander, but because they've been an institution outside of music for the whole community. There was I don't know if you're familiar with him, but there was a MC named Mike One, and he died of suicide, I think back in 2016, I want to say, because he was in his 40s and he wasn't where he wanted to be. And so Jory and Simeon got together and had a heal-in, if you will. They turned off the music. They were in the club. They turned off the music, and it was an open discussion where everybody could feel protected and valued and listened to. And people just poured their hearts off about how they felt about Mike dying, how they felt about things going on in their personal life. Mm-hmm. So we're honoring them for things like that because they have indeed been a institution outside of just music where they actually, if you will, grow and heal the community as opposed to just make money or exploit the community. And the Tyehimba Jess Awards are named after the 2017 Pulitzer Prize winning poet, Tyehimba Jess. And we named it after Tyehimba because we got one of the first resolutions we got for anybody was for Tyehimba on the city and the county side. And Tyehimba couldn't make it for his city resolution. Plus, he didn't want to anyway because he wanted no parts of Rahm Emanuel at the time. But he didn't have to be bothered with Rahm Emanuel because his flight didn't get in until the next day. So at his when he received the souvenir copies of his resolution for the Cook County, he made an appeal on our behalf to the Cook County Board of Commissioners to do more for the urban fine arts community or provide more support for the urban fine arts community beyond a symbolic gesture, because that's what on the city side, the now vice mayor, Walter Burnett, that's how he described the Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month resolution that Amina Hawkins and I got through back then. Amina came to me and asked me to draft this resolution, and she said she was going to present it to Walter Burnett to sponsor in City Council. And so when I followed up and asked them, you know, where's the money? Where's the real support for Chicago's hip hop community? He told me in a sidebar during a city council meeting that it was just a symbolic gesture and nothing more. So Tyehimba said, you know, he appealed to them in a very eloquent way to provide more than a symbolic gesture, whether it be money or in-kind support or the stuff that we're getting now with the the Hip Hop Olympics, which for the Hip Hop Olympics, we're getting $5,000 and use of Camp Shabona Woods and some promotional support for that, which we would have never had that. You know, it's one of those a closed mouth doesn't get fed kind of thing, and we use that to actually get the first hip hop pavilion at any kind of Cook County Forest Preserve event back, I want to say in 2018, something to that effect. So he did that while he was on a book tour. So okay, let me shut up.
Well, Mark, thank you so much. Mark Armstrong, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing with CUFAC, which is Chicago Urban Fine Arts Commonwealth. And thank you for joining us and talking about it and fighting the good fight. And Vashawn Quinones, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some time with us, giving your insight about your father's work, Shabba Doo's work, and also thank you for all that you do too.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Mark. It was a pleasure meeting you or talking to you. Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Everybody be sure to come out for Tuesday and meet Vashawn's uncle and Shabba Doo's older brother.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay. Again now.
WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. Thank you so much.
Very, very welcome, and thank you.